welcome to Beams, Screams, and Dreams, the only show where the viewer gets to tell their truth. I'm your host, Joshua Wiggin, joined tonight by my co host and wife, Ashley Wiggin. Tales of otherworldly encounters have been prevalent throughout all of human history, be it gods descending from heaven to gift mankind fire, heroes battling mythological beasts, or saucers flying in the sky. There has always been a presence. Some have been explained away, while others have persisted and grown in scope, with people still experiencing the phenomena to this day. Who are our otherworldly visitors? And how do they choose who they reveal themselves to? Our first guest tonight is Alejandro, here to share a story that may resonate with many of our viewers and listeners. Have you ever seen something out of the corner of your eye that you couldn't explain? Or perhaps you've experienced sleep paralysis. If so, you may have encountered what many now refer to as the Hat Man. Tales of shadow people stretch back throughout recorded history. And tonight, Alejandro is here to add his story to that record. Alejandro, welcome to Beam, Screams, and Dreams.
How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. How about you guys?
We're doing great.
We're doing great.
So happy that you're here.
Yeah, very happy to have you here. You reached out and spoke with Ashley about your experiences. Could you tell us when all this started for you?
So about 6 years old is really when as soon as I stepped foot in the house, is when we really started experiencing things, me and my siblings. Now the house did have a little bit of a history. It was built by my great-great-grandfather for his wife. And towards the end of his life, he ended up murdering his wife in the house. Well, technically, he ran over her outside and then took her inside where she died.
Oh my gosh. Was that accidental occurrence?
No, he ran over her about 6 times. It was actual murder. So when I moved into the house, first night there, I was sleeping on the couch because they didn't have beds for us yet. And in the hallway, the way it was set up was the couch was there, and pointing straight from the couch was a hallway and a TV. And then to the right was the dining room, giant mirror on the wall. I wake up in the middle of the night, I look to the hallway, I see a figure of a person. I thought it was somebody walking out, but it was completely shadow. So I go back to sleep. Next night happens again. After a few nights, I realized, people aren't walking down the hallway and just standing to stare at me all night, every night. Again, I was 6, took me a little bit to figure it out. So as time progresses, we see shadow people everywhere. Every doorway, every hallway. Me, my sisters, and my brothers. There are 6 of us in total.
So you're 6 years old at the time. You have a couple older, a couple younger.
Yeah, I have 3 older and 2 younger.
Okay.
So my oldest sibling at the time was 10. He's 4 years older than me. So over time, we realized, it's just always, it's a fact of life in that house. You're gonna see things. We never felt anything, never attacked us, never touched us. We would just see them through doorways, always. So the first real scare, well, let me backtrack a little bit. The first unique thing I saw that wasn't just a shadow person was actually the exact opposite. I believe it was the ghost of my great-great-grandmother. We would see just a woman in a white nightgown walking down the hallway. Just sporadically through the hallway. And I'm not the only one that saw it. My older sister saw it. My older brother saw it. My parents both saw it. And it was just something that we never were really afraid of that one. It was just always there. We believe it was our great-great-grandmother.
Sure, yeah.
And then when we started renovating the house and all that, it really picked up to where if you tried to go to the bathroom at night, you were, as soon as you passed through a doorway, everything became cold. Nothing hurt you, nothing grabbed you, nothing like that, but it was cold. And you would see them walk past you, walk down the hallway, you know. And the first real hard one that I saw that felt malicious, I should say, is I was in, so we were renovating the bathroom and I went into the master bathroom in my parents' bedroom.
About how
As
long was
walking
this?
out, I turned to,
From when you moved in, you said you were.
I was about 8 years old at the time.
So about 2 years later.
2 years later, and
And you constantly seen.
you've seen these shadows through the threshold. You've experienced the white nightgown apparition, which you assume to be your great grandmother, and this is happening even after that.
Yes.
Okay.
This is just, we would see the great grandmother until the day I moved out.
Okay.
We would see these apparitions until the day I moved out. And then I went into my parents' bedroom to use the bathroom. Now, my parents' bedroom is where my great grandmother died. So I'm walking out, I turn to close the door, and I see the shape of a little girl standing by the window. What really stuck out to me and what made me feel it was malicious were the red eyes. It's the first time I had ever seen one with red eyes. I slammed the door shut. I walked away. I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't want to scare my younger siblings. After the renovation started is when I started really seeing the ones that I feel are malicious. The hat man with the red eyes, the little girl with the red eyes. So they say there's, multiple different hatmen, different hats. I saw them all. I saw the fedora. I saw the top hat. I saw everything. So, and what brings me to my final section of the story, this happened maybe right before I moved out when I was 16. It might have been about a year before I was 15. I was sleeping on the couch, passed out watching TV. I woke up, decided I was going to get a glass of water. So the way my house was set up was, the couch, dining room to the right, large window or mirror on the wall across from that entranceway. So I get up, I start walking into the dining room to get to the kitchen, and I see some shadow person in the hallway. Didn't scare me, didn't mind it.
You've seen them a lot at that point, so
exactly.
Almost commonplace.
Yeah. But I never saw them come through a door. They're always just past the door. Or I went through the door and there they were. What struck me was when I'm walking into this dining room is I see it following me in the mirror. I can see the mirror. I can see it behind me. It's following me. That scared me. So kind of rushed my legs a little bit to flip on the lights, and I look in the mirror and it looks like it's reaching out a hand, like it's looking for help.
Like a beckoning almost.
Like it was reaching out to me, like, don't go.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then I just felt the most intense cold I've ever felt. The dead of my back. I couldn't move. I couldn't get the light. All I could feel was just terror. It's the only time in my life I've been purely terrified and freezing. Now, this is the summer in Texas, so it's hot.
Right.
Yeah.
Even at night.
Yeah. There's no break from that.
So it was just cold. It didn't hurt. It was cold. And it took me what felt like 15 minutes, but was probably only a few seconds to, forced my arm up to hit the light switch, and then gone. Next morning, I woke up in pain. My back was killing me. My parents are saying, "Oh no, you slept wrong. It is, you slept wrong. You're fine." And then I take my shirt off. I take a look. There's a softball-sized bruise in the dead of my back.
Wow. So
that was maybe a year before I moved out.
did you feel anything touch you though when that happened, or was it just that cold feeling?
It just felt cold.
Oh,
It felt like just nothing, like the complete absence of energy. And I didn't get the feeling from it that it was out to harm me at all. I didn't get the feeling that it wanted to hurt me. I got the feeling that it wanted my help.
So do you think that maybe there was something else with it that was the thing that harmed you actually?
I think my personal opinion on the matter was that it didn't know it could hurt me. I think it wanted my help, and when it touched me, it didn't realize that it was going to harm me.
Right.
That's my personal feeling, because it didn't feel malicious. It didn't feel hurtful. It felt like it wanted help.
It was almost accidental. Just the bruise and the experience you felt was an accidental byproduct of making a like a spiritual contact to the contact of a mortal.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the defining factor that led that spirit to come through the threshold versus the last 10 years that you'd experienced?
I don't know. Over the years, I've developed my own kind of theory about shadow people. I feel shadow people are just lost souls. And places where a violent death occur are a little bit thinner on the veil, where they can sometimes pass through. And I think some of them just want help. My personal belief is that the red-eyed shadow people, the ones that are malicious, the ones that feel like terror, are the ones that kind of govern over the rest.
Oh,
They keep them from trying to attempt contact. They keep them from escaping whatever, veil they're in.
so do you think that the Hat Men are a good example of the ones that try to keep the others from contacting mortals?
I do believe so, because Hat Men are almost synonymous with the red-eyed shadow people.
Yeah. From what I've researched and read, and personal accounts that I've heard, that seems, with the Hat Man, it's always a sense of fear. Every single
dreadful,
time.
It's definitely a negative energy that most people convey in those experiences.
But the shadow person that touched you was not one of the red. It was not one of the Hat Men or the red glowing eyed shadow people.
No, it was just a completely featureless, disembodied body.
Yeah, just a full shadow.
So had you ever experienced one of the children, or like one of the red-eyed Hat Men that you had seen in your grandmother's property, or I'm sorry, great grandmother's property? Had any of those entities ever been physically kind of scary or physically obtrusive as that one had?
So going back to that little girl, a few months after that, and I remember I didn't tell anyone about this.
Right.
We were watching a movie in the living room, my whole family except my sister. My sister is afraid of everything. She will not watch a horror movie. So she was in my parents' room, because that's where the computer was, back in the days when not everybody had a smartphone. So my sister's in there. We're all watching 13 Ghosts in the living room.
Ooh, good
one. And all we hear is her scream and run out. Freaking out, she says to my parents There's a little girl with red eyes in your closet. And I asked her about it later on, and she said, you know, she just stood there staring. My sister is not one to lie. And she was older than me at the time. She's 2 years older than me. She wouldn't lie about that. I know her very well. And I never told her about seeing a little girl with red eyes in that room. I don't think they have any real reason to come through and try to touch us or harm us. I think that fear that we feel is whatever soul we have, knowing that eventually it's going to be under that entity's rule.
Wow.
Under the hammer of that entity.
That's something else. That's definitely a unique take. Of your family members, and speaking of your family themselves, does your family still have the house? Are family members of yours still living there? And what's the general sense of your siblings having left? Do you guys still talk about these experiences, and have they shared their experiences with you?
The only sibling I still talk to is my sister, my older sister, the one that had the same experience as me. The house was left to a distant aunt after my stepmother died. When my stepmother passed away, there was, you know, nobody to take it. So it went to a distant cousin or something like that, because everyone else had left. So the house went to family members, but we don't keep in contact. I never met them because they weren't blood related to me. They were, step family. But when it comes to my siblings, it's just my older sister. I tried talking to my younger sister about it, but she was way too young to remember much. She was born in 2001, so.
Yeah.
And you guys, have you experienced anything since you've left that home?
Personally, I have not. I haven't really asked my older sister if she has or not. We still keep in contact. She actually moved up here to be closer to me after my stepmom died. The rest of my siblings, we kind of lost contact.
But you guys kind of went through something that was kind of traumatic for children. I mean, like for children, most of the time,
I would say absolutely.
I mean, it's
traumatic.
It's traumatic for sure. But I mean, when kids experience entities and ghosts, a lot of the times it is just played off as like, you're just a child. You're not seeing anything. That's not real. That's not. But you have experienced it for 10 years, along with a sibling as well that can say the same thing, a testament to what you're both seeing. And do you think that was, like you said in the beginning, there was something tragic that happened there? Do you think that those spirits were really just kind of feeding off of that negative energy and using it as like a scare tactic to scare you, to feed off that continued negative energy?
Right. Yeah, like a leech feeding off of blood.
Personally, I don't think so. I think was when somebody dies, and like I think that there are fault lines in the veil between our world and the next. And what I think is that when something violent like that happens, when a violent death occurs like that, it's like throwing dynamite into a fault line. It's like nuking a fault line to where it tears it open.
Causes earthquakes. It ripples out.
Yes. And it causes that opening to, it causes things to spill through. I think personally, it was a place for people to go. And it kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, our appendix. Well, they're trying to move through, that crater opened up and things are just falling in. Going into it, I think we were pretty vulnerable to begin with. And it made a big impression on us. We moved in on September 10th, 2001.
Oh man. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like happy days. We're moving into a new home. Next day, it's just like, what is happening to the world? Oh my God. That's a little intense.
Then from there, it was a flurry of, okay, well, there's things that are just watching me always. They're always there just past that door. So I don't think we really look at it in a negative light. It was more of our house is different. We
Do you have
other things in it.
Do you have a theory or a thought as to why they were always just beyond the threshold for you, just beyond the door, like they couldn't be in the same place as you?
I think that doors have a little power. A lot of folklore and lore has a door has power. It's a threshold that leads into, vampires need permission to pass the door. The black-eyed children need permission to get through a door. I think that when you are somewhere, your spiritual energy is radiating. And when they are just past that door, I don't think they couldn't. I just don't think they wanted to or were allowed to. We have our spiritual energy that's always radiating. And I don't think they're allowed, because they are pure spiritual energy, I think.
You have to invite it. You have to invite it in. I do believe that as well. And that's whether negative or positive. I think that you have to invite that in. Like you said, like the vampire folklore or whatever. I'm still like, we've talked about this. Are vampires real? Who knows? Maybe they were eventually, or like at some point in time. But that idea, idea comes from somewhere. That idea of like, you can't pass this house. And that is true within multiple religions, multiple just spiritualities. I mean, the idea of people that aren't baptized walking through a church door, or the people that are putting salt in front of their doorways to protect from people that are trying to harm them. I think that is a true thing. And our doorways do hold power because of the heart and soul that we put into our homes on the inside.
Right. You're kind of radiating love inside of your home, and that might be enough of a boundary in and of itself to kind of stop something from coming in.
And I'm an atheist personally, but I still believe that there's something. I believe there's an energy. Everything has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And when we die, I lean more to the Epicureanism. I don't know if you've ever read into that philosophy.
Sure. Yeah. Epicurus. Yeah.
Where our soul is the same as everything else. It's made of atoms, and atoms decay over time.
And Newton's first law is we can't be created or destroyed. We can only change.
Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed. And the big thing that kind of, I don't know, it might just be confirmation bias on my part, but when spirits are around, batteries drain. They're pulling energy to stop the atom's atomic decay.
What is your theory on what the Hat Man is as compared to? So we said there's, the regular spiritual energy of just the shadow person. There's almost a maligned or negative spiritual energy.
It's had it as a class.
Or the red-eyed, but and then the hat person would be almost the leader of that. Where do you think a spiritual energy like that would come from? Is that of this world, or is that of another realm?
I want to say that that kind of spiritual energy comes from the other side. Whatever the other side is, that's where it comes from. I don't think that they were ever human. Well, I believe that the shadow people were once human, and their souls are being ferried. And like I said, I think they fall out, in these places where a hole was built by a violent death. And I think that they were sent to bring them back. I think that they are sent to stop it.
They're wrangling up. They're bringing back.
Yes. They are the jailers or the wardens, the cowboys, the wranglers.
The Blade Runners of the soul world there.
Yes. They're meant to bring back the lost souls and get them back on track to wherever we're supposed to go.
A powerful theory, and for me,
I like that. Honestly, it's something I never
for me a
thought
very
of.
fresh take. And it also makes me wonder about those who experience sleep paralysis that see them. You know,
Like what is running around that
yeah.
you don't see? That's why they're there, maybe.
The Hat Man is making it to where you can't move, or whatever entity is there making it to where you can't move. And sometimes you see the Hat Man, sometimes you see the Hag, and the Hag is what the Hat Man's trying to bring back. Because it's not sleep paralysis isn't always the Hat Man. You also have the Hag, the Imp, you know, all these other things. You know, those are just some of the more common, but sometimes, you know, people just tend to happen to look that way. That's where he is, or look that way. That's where it is. It's my own personal theory.
I think that, well, okay, so it's your personal theory for us because we haven't heard that.
Yeah, that's a brand new one.
But we're definitely going to have to look into that more because we love that.
I've heard
But
I
believe that idea kind of strings together why you see the Hat Man in multiple cultures, in multiple time eras, in multiple countries, religions, and everything, because that makes sense to me. Like, as believing in another realm, multiple realms, like, someone's got to be the key holder, right? Someone's got to be the gatekeeper. Someone's got to be the, like you said, the cowboy. Somebody's got to go pick up all the missing pieces.
Possibly.
And whether they're good or bad, you know?
Well, I think it'll take a lot more people like Alejandro here coming forward with their stories and sharing their stories. I mean, how do you even put this into, you know, a categorized or make it a well-documented experience?
I think you split the category wide open now, honestly.
Yeah, you really did. Where you have enough information to even really start analyzing.
Right.
You know?
I think we're on a whole new track.
It takes a lot more people coming forward with their stories to really do that.
And maybe we'll have you come back and listen to some other people's stories to really kind of sink our teeth into that.
Alejandro, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. I mean,
do you have any closing thoughts?
I think that shadow people altogether are maligned, you know, but I don't think they should be. 9 times, you know, most experiences with them aren't harmful. They aren't hurtful. They're just there. And when you feel cold around them or you feel afraid, it's just our subconscious or our spirit or whatever not understanding what's going on, or them just trying to feel a little bit of energy and reaching out to us for help. They don't want to go wherever they're going because they don't understand. They are afraid, just as we are. They were once human, I think. And I don't think I think we should try and, rather than malign them and hate them and fear them, try and figure out where they're coming from. Because if we can understand where they come from, we can understand where we're going once we're gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think, you know, you've given us a very fresh take on that, and something that we hadn't thought of before. And I think that's something that we're all going to have to look in going towards the future. And Alejandro, thank you for being here tonight on Beams, Creams, and Dreams.
Thank you so much. We enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you for having me.
Tonight, we'd also like to share a clip from a researcher who I've been in contact with, only known as EXO GREG. And this guy sent us an incredible audio clip plus some
montage.
A montage of some of the visual evidence.
Video he's collected throughout the years.
And these are from mostly,
I think he says 40 years of research.
These are mostly government agencies with their videos, and they're all available on his page. But without further ado,
EXO GREG.
check it out.
So, how can I start this? When I was a kid, I saw a UFO, and this is why I have an interest in that matter. It was a red glowing ball traveling the sky. It was probably big as a 747 plane, and I wasn't the only one who saw it, by the way. Many, probably a couple of maybe 20, 30 people saw it, and even some people called the radio station at the time. So it passed on the radio. So my interest started there. After that, I started to like sci-fi show, and I love Star Wars and movies like that, and I always read books about UFOs and alien. At the time, it was over 40 years ago. The books wasn't so the picture wasn't so nice as today compared to today, but it was a very interesting. So many years ago, I started my page called EXO GREG, and I, I started with mostly Mars alien life finding or fossil finding, stuff like that, moons anomalies, sun anomalies, and in general space anomalies. So I'm seeking knowledge about this subject, and I'm seeking knowledge by government sources. Most of the time, I mean NASA, and more recently even FBI, CIA, NSA, sometime military even that could exist, astronaut testimony, etc. Most of the posts I have made on my Facebook page are things that I discovered myself, but many posts also are from other researcher. I try to pick the most reliable sources possible. I think it's very important for the credibility, and I think maybe I have a few exceptions, but most of the time I have official sources that are very credible. So well, that's it. I invite you on my page if you want to find out many stuff. I think I have post a few posts at least are very original. You cannot find it anywhere else, except if I have already posted it on other groups, but UFO groups, for example. I think it's a nice page. So you're welcome on my page, and thank you for the interview. Thank you, Beams, Screams, and Dreams, for this interview again, and I will watch you. You got a new member here, so have a nice day. Thank you very much again. Bye bye.
All right, guys, that was EXO GREG. What a phenomenal audio clip.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we look forward to seeing much more of your collection. And we definitely are going to follow your page.
Yeah, that's going to be EXO GREG on Facebook. We're definitely going to follow them. And
You guys should too.
Yeah, we hope you will too.
Hi, I'm Ashley Wiggin, bringing you the weirdest and wildest news stories from around the globe. If it's extra normal, you'll find it here on Extra Normal News. There has been a lot of speculation about Halloween activities this year, but one man is ready with his costume for the party in the great beyond. A 94-year-old Roanoke man learned earlier this year that he was on a slow decline to his final resting place. And as he made his preparations, one request has his friends and family on a mission to fulfill his dying wish: a juicy fruit gum casket. Initially, the owner of Oakie's funeral service and longtime friend of the family was denied by Mars Wrigley, but the group took to Facebook and local media, and the candy moguls conceded to Suddy Economy's dying wish. The company will furnish a perfect rendition of the beloved gum wrapper to wrap Economy's casket much as it did his life. Next, I'll take you to Russia. On September 2nd of this year, a flying Russian TV crew discovered a hole in Siberia measuring 65 feet wide and nearly 100 feet deep. This newly discovered hole is one of 9 spotted in the region since 2013, although there have been several more in Russia, adding up to about 17 thus far. Scientists have been researching the reason behind the holes, proposing climate change as a major factor, but with no substantial hypothesis yet. A major concern is the speed in which they must research the phenomenon, since the holes tend to fill with water in 2 years or less. But Sigourney Weaver and Shia LaBeouf couldn't be reached for further comment on the holes. And lastly tonight, I'll bring you back to the summer of 1960. A 14-year-old Boy Scout was charged with the task to oversee then Vice President Richard Nixon at a picnic in Illinois. This year, on September 22nd, that Boy Scout celebrated the 60th anniversary of snagging Richard Nixon's leftovers. He waited by the picnic table once the former vice president turned president departed, then took the sandwich home to be frozen as it stays to this day. Wrapped in a plastic bag and tucked away inside a glass jar, Steve Jenny holds the 60-year-old leftovers of then VP Richard Nixon. As we all know, Richard Nixon is no stranger to leaving unfinished business, much like his 1972 re-election and early resignation. DNA samples from the sandwich have ruled out Nixon as a suspect for the Zodiac killings. However, Ted Cruz is still at large. That about wraps up another edition of Extra Normal News. Thanks for joining us today, and tune in next time.
For our next guest tonight, we're very happy to introduce you to Luke, here to share his experiences with the Dover Demon and what might be happening in the Bridgewater Triangle. Luke, welcome to Beams, Screams, and Dreams. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Our pleasure. So you, when you reached out, you said you had a little bit of experience with the Dover Demon. Would you recount that tale for us?
I mean, it was pretty much like most Dover Demon stories. I was walking down a weird old dirt road, or actually no, it wasn't a dirt road, but it was turning into the woods that was right near my childhood house. Saw a weird little, kind of looked like a goblin, had a real big head. I could only see the outline of it and had 2 big eyes that were glowing, kind of like, not iridescent like a cat, but like actually like emitting light.
Like phosphorescent.
Yeah, and they were orange. One of my friends who was with me said he saw yellow, but I can remember him pretty clear being just bright orange as her hair. And we both stared at each other for a little bit. It ran away, I ran away, because I was young and on a dark, random street. And that was about it. And that did kind of push me down the road of, looking into the native cryptids in the area.
So that did take place there in Massachusetts, where the Dover Demon had been seen before, right?
So that was Dedham, Massachusetts, which is the town next to Dover. On probably about a 3-minute drive to where the first Dover Demon sighting was.
That's pretty close.
And so for people who aren't familiar with that region, what is the Dover Demon?
Dover Demon is, it was reported, I think, like the 1980s or something like that. Weird goblin-looking creature, big head, skinny arms, sometimes reported with having something over its back, not what I saw. Very skinny, long arms, probably about 4 feet tall, always near the trees, near the woods. These woods actually led into a cemetery that we used to frequent as kids. But what Massachusetts also has is puckwudgies, which kind of sounds exactly like it, where I think it was just another renaming of the sighting of puckwudgies, which has been hundreds. Not so much in the eastern part of the state, but we're not far off from the Bridgewater Triangle, which is kind of a hot spot for Pukwudgies. So I think it's just another renaming, like how Sasquatches have had probably 30 different names for this exactly the same creature.
Absolutely, yeah. With the Sasquatch having practically a different name for each native tribe that had lore of the Sasquatch.
Or even region in the world.
Right.
Yeah, whatever town it gets, it starts with that town's name, and then whatever word for monster rhymes with that town's name. The same animal, like their thing or Ufanat or whatever it is, but they just keep renaming it because maybe they don't know, or maybe they want tourist bucks.
Yeah, with the Dover Demon, the proximity to the Bridgewater Triangle and the Pukwudgie, there's a lot of native lore there. I think one of my notes that I actually did have here was about Hockomock Swamp, which is there in the Bridgewater Triangle. And it's got tales of everything from Bigfoot sightings, Thunderbirds, the Pukwudgie, like you had mentioned, to poltergeists, UFOs. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
With your, go right ahead.
All right, go on.
With your overall theory for something like that, do you think that the Pukwudgie and the Dover Demon are more extraterrestrial in nature or more cryptid in nature?
So I don't put a line between cryptid and alien. I think we kind of did that ourselves as humans, where we see a fuzzy thing in the woods, we think cryptid. We see something that's bald in the woods, we think alien. I think it's more Ufanat, which kind of combines them. Yeah, maybe from space, maybe I think interdimensional would be my kind of thing, crossing over where lines are thin. So I don't see a difference between aliens and cryptids.
Okay.
Sure. When you were growing up, were there like tales of this, or was your experience kind of like the first time that you actually heard about this or recognized it?
Honestly, I think I saw it first and then started asking questions around, and a lot of the adults or older people at that time knew, like, oh yeah, they started bringing up the Dover Demon, and then and this was years later when I finally got the word Dover Demon out, so I could kind of follow that path.
Sure. You said you were about like 12 years old when you'd seen this. That's got to be a pretty frightening experience there in and of itself.
We ran like hell.
With that area of the Bridgewater Triangle, is that something that you are still looking into, or have you focused your research and kind of what you look at for? You're saying Ufanat. Do you look elsewhere, or are you still looking around in that area for more information or clues as to what these things could be?
Not particularly the Bridgewater Triangle, because I have moved out to New Hampshire now. So the Bridgewater Triangle is probably about a 3.5-hour drive for me.
Sure.
We definitely want to get down there. Like, we have been doing some paranormal investigation, but we're mostly looking at poltergeist right now because there's a lot in there. But if I see Bigfoot like waving at me in the woods, I'm not gonna be like, nah, sorry, babe, I'm here for ghosts.
Yeah, you got to put them on hold, man. Maybe drop them a card, tell them to hit you back later or something.
I'm a barber. I'll shave him. I'll give him a skin fade head to toe.
Let's assimilate him,
Yeah, get him hanging out. Teach him how to do a trim.
Yeah,
That's great, man. So you are doing paranormal investigation now in New England, or I'm sorry, New Hampshire. Is that right?
No, New Hampshire's in New England.
Huh?
New Hampshire's in New England, so yes.
New Hampshire and New England rolled together, yeah.
It's all the same.
Have you been on a couple of good investigations out there? Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what we've been doing is the Estes method with the spirit box, which is,
Of course, yeah.
if you guys are familiar, but if the people listening aren't, it's a machine that rolls through radio frequencies like really quickly. And then what we do is pump that into one person who's wearing isolation headphones, and then we have a conversation with them. And, sometimes there's just nothing there. But sometimes it's like the person who cannot hear me, or we're just having a full regular conversation like we are right now.
So I'm sorry. Do you find that maybe that could also be a tool to speak to these forest entities or cryptids that you've experienced?
I mean, I'm not putting anything out there or not, trying to draw those lines with like a false positive, but possibly in the places we've gone, I haven't expected anything like that. More Ufanat or Fae or anything like that. It's, we're going for poltergeist because that's what has been kind of put on our laps.
Something I've been looking into is the origin of the Fae isn't necessarily a fairy like most people think. When they think of
Oh
fairy.
no, the cute little ballerinas with wings. No.
Right. Yeah. It's the more or less the spirit of the undead.
Some of them are, from what I'm just getting into it as well. So I'm not 100%. So a lot of them is kind of like the traditional fairy, except they'll like, rip your heart out and like kill your kid. But
Oh yeah,
some of
definitely.
them, but then there's some who are kind of more like human-like, who have crossed over and all this different stuff. There's so many different paths you can follow down when you're looking into Fey lore.
It's something I think maybe is that something that anybody that's going out there into the world of paranormal investigation maybe should be worried about, is opening that kind of gateway to something that you don't necessarily know what it is.
We definitely take precautions for that. We do leave offerings. We always bring tobacco, honey, and whiskey. And we will leave those wherever we go. It's like we let them know like this is free. That's a really big important thing. They always expect payment. And it's like, no, just take it. Like go for it. Like if you want to hang out and talk, that's sweet, but this is for you. And like they got some pretty good scotch last night. And when I gave them scotch, like they started talking. And actually one of them was super excited about tobacco the other night.
One of the spirits you had spoken to.
It was right before we clicked record, of course, and I put the tobacco down, and like I said, like this is free, and normally after the offering, we click record. And in a row, the guy wearing the headphones said, "Tobacco, I love you. This makes things so much better."
Now, do you ever, after you've ever left an offering, is that more of a symbolic gesture, or have you gone back and found those items missing?
With the places we've been, we haven't done any offerings in a home yet. We're not trying to completely calm them down and be like, hey, don't act up right now, which we've definitely seen the offerings have done. So we've only done them in natural places. Like tomorrow, we are going to the site where that place burned down. We are going to do that and leave them. But like in the other random outdoor places that have seen sightings, it's very hard to go back and try to find a couple flakes of tobacco and a pile of honey.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just like a sample. You're not leaving them a pack of cohibas and a jar of honey, nothing like that.
No. So I actually have a pack of Camel Reds around, and I just rip it up and I just give them the straight tobacco.
Okay. What in your mind is the most compelling piece of evidence to prove the existence of that which is extra normal to date?
I'm gonna go with the full Mothman section of the Mothman having over 100 sightings, the Indrid Cold experience, and the fall of the bridge. It was so succinct. Everything was just out there, open view. Everybody in town saw it, and I think there was like 150 sightings. Of course, I'm going to say at least 75 of those are fake, but even still, that's a whole lot of people who honestly saw a giant Mothman with glowing red eyes and supposedly a bomb ass, and then get warned about a bridge that was going to drop, and then it did.
Yeah, I think the Mothman for me is one of the most compelling as well. The work of John.
It's the most boring part. Like Indrid Cold's the most interesting part.
The best part, I think all the work of John Keel with that really kind of set that whole thing off. When you're observing the phenomenon, not only are you seeing it but becoming a part of it is, pretty compelling in and of itself.
Yeah.
So do you think that because of kind of your affinity for the Mothman story, and well, the legacy now really, did that drive you more towards this idea of being in the paranormal rather than like researching the cryptid or researching the alien aspect of, the things that your own experiences,
So I definitely was more early on into ghosts, demons, and all of that kind of stuff. And then kind of looking more into it, I start seeing that they might not all be different. They might be just, different branches on the same tree. And then that's kind of how I started incorporating more, like looking into cryptids, looking into the fae, looking into everything like that. And like removing those lines, it starts to kind of become one. But of course, those are always going to be there. So, not saying I have all the answers, but I'm not like that's kind of turned me into more of the broad spectrum. But I've started definitely, cryptids a little bit, and then later just from other, because I have seen a lot of ghost kind of things as well, drove me that way. And then just demons because I liked metal when I was a kid and still do. Then I kind of started going back to cryptids, started going into aliens, and then started looking at them all as equals.
Have you heard of any stories of the Dover demon since you've heard your tale? Has anyone told you their story, or have you heard of any sightings in like your region?
Oh yeah, most of my friends still live in that area, and they'll like screenshot or like tag me in something on Facebook, like whenever they see somebody, just say, "Oh, I saw some weird thing in the woods," and it's always in that area, and they hashtag Dover Demon. The Dover Demon sightings have never had a cool sighting. It's never like we stood and looked at each other for 5 minutes, and I can give a full description. It was some weird thing just like scurrying away, and then that was it. It's a cool cryptid. But I don't think you're going to see him that well there. And if you really want to see a Pukwudgie, it's the Bridgewater Triangle, and that's where it seems to be able to. You get a couple minutes being able to look at them rather than 1 second where it disappears into the thick trees.
And I think the most common description there of the Dover demon too is looking similar to a gray, but having orange skin and glowing eyes, much like you said, which kind of doesn't fit a lot of other descriptions other than maybe something like the Kelly Hopkinsville experience out in Kentucky. But those guys have like giant ears, so it's a little bit different. But can you see that as giant ears on that giant head in the dark,
To be honest, I think the Kellysville goblins might just be Pukwudgies as well. They're very similar to a lot of descriptions I've heard from this region.
I don't know if you saw this, but I believe it was maybe a year ago. So we're in Colorado, and just east of us, there's a small town called La Junta, and there was a video footage from a woman's garage of like this goblin creature like walking down her driveway, and it definitely looks like that. Everyone on Facebook, of course, was like,
"It looks like Dobby."
Dobby.
Looks like Dobby from Harry Potter.
And that was the first thing I saw whenever Josh was showing me the pictures of the Pukwudgie and of the Kelly experience. That I was like, this looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not even regional, but also like it's interesting to have these. It's kind of like the Yeti, kind of like the Sasquatch being like a similar thing that exists everywhere, but maybe it is like just relative to its environment also.
Going forward with your paranormal investigations, what is it that you'd like to see, and what do you hope to find?
I mean, everyone wants to find proof. I think we're probably a long way away from that, but at least if I can find compelling evidence, at least something that is worth note of like, okay, like all you people who are trying to naysay, what do you say about this? That would be fantastic. Proof would be great, and answers would be even better to what everything is. But, I got maybe $200 worth of equipment, hoping to add more.
Well, Luke, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight and talking to us about your experiences. And like I said, I hope we get to speak with you in the future and you can share some of your future investigations.
No, I had fun. Just let me know when.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Luke. See you soon.
You. Have a good one.
Our final guest tonight is Jordan, here to share with us that hauntings don't always come from the world of the paranormal. Sometimes they come from within. Jordan, welcome to Beam, Screams, and Dreams. How are you?
Hi.
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Excited to have you.
Staying busy.
Oh,
Lots of
thank you.
interviews today, which is great. Yeah, a pretty fascinating tale here about night terrors that have been plaguing you for your whole life. You can, where did that all begin? You can start at the beginning for us.
Well, as far as I could remember, my mom always told me that I always had really weird sleep patterns, and I would kind of be in one of those weird trances in the nightmare, like I'd be screaming and I would just be looking right through her. So ever since I was little, it's just never stopped.
Has there been a concurrent theme throughout these night terrors that you've had since you were little?
Not really. I mean, most of the time it's like I'll look into another room, or I'll think I'll see someone walking around in my house, or just random things really. Spiders in the bed looking for, I'll wake my husband up asking him like, turn on the lights, there's bugs in the bed or something, and there's totally not. But it seems real. So it varies, and it kind of depends on my stress level. When I was pregnant and super hormonal, that changed a lot. So it don't really know a pattern, but it happens like every night. It just seems to get worse or slightly better.
Is this something that you've ever been to a medical professional or doctor about? Is there any kind of treatment for something like this that you can do, or is this just it is what it is and it's always there?
Well, I've been to a few different doctors, pretty much the same, no screen time before bed, or, take a sleeping pill, but that just seems to make it worse. So I don't really trust myself with medication. Not only that do I suck at taking medication, and I've never stayed on on any type of medical plan, but it just seems to not work. So I just kind of have to deal with it.
So you experience this every night. Is it multiple times a night? How does this affect, how does your husband feel about that?
Well, we're both always exhausted. That's the first thing. I mean, it just, to deal with it, we just kind of, he's always been a source of support to help me try to go back to sleep, but it does happen multiple times. It's kind of like if you have that dream where you're falling and you wake yourself up, like right before you hit the ground,
Right.
It's like that feeling constantly throughout my sleep. And I don't know exactly the science behind it. I think it's when you get to a certain like sleep pattern, or sleep cycle rather. It's like right when I start to fall asleep, I'll have it. And I'll even notice myself like, as I'm just laying there trying to go to sleep, having dreams and I'm not fully asleep. Like I know I'm still awake. So I don't really know all of the science behind it, but it's pretty intense sometimes. I mean, I've even attacked Cody in my sleep, and I didn't know who he was. He looked like somebody else.
Wow.
Like it's like hallucinating with your like being asleep. It's wild. Poor
I know
Cody.
a lot
Just
of people
popped in the
that
face.
experience night terrors and even sleep paralysis. Usually see a lot of the shadow people, things like the Hat Man. Is that something that you've experienced as well?
Not really. Not anything that's recognizable or like, that I've heard anywhere. It's mostly just I feel like someone's breaking in the house, but nothing in particular, like not a certain person or like reoccurring issue or like, being that I see. It varies.
And so when you're sleeping, you don't wake up? Like are these instances, like you said, you were attacking your husband, or like when you said that there were spiders, do you wake up at some point and you realize what's happening, or are you just fully asleep?
No, I know what's going on. I have total control of my body. It's mostly just my mind I don't have control of, which is really scary. But I mean, it's like you hit a brick wall. Like when you fall asleep and you had that dream that you're falling, it's like an instant, like when you hit the ground and you jolt yourself awake, it's kind of like that when I finally wake myself up, but it's random. Like I don't really have anything where Cody has to tell me a certain thing to wake up, or, nothing like that. I realized, wow, that was stupid. And I'm actually asleep. Like, this doesn't make sense. Why are there scorpions in my bed? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So does this come with stuff too? Like you said, you've attacked your husband. Does that also come with things like sleepwalking?
Yeah.
You leave the bed itself, and you're kind of in a half. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what that's like?
Yeah, I mean, I've that happens a lot. a lot of times I'm so scared. I don't know why I'm really scared. And I'll jump out of bed, I'll run out of the room, or, there's been times where I've sleptwalked to my car. I tried to drive, like walking down, I lived in apartments like a really long time ago, walking down the stairs to my car, was not dressed to impress at all. I was naked and walked to my car and tried to drive. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. It was like, it didn't make sense. I couldn't find where to put the key in. Like I was everywhere, like trying to put the key in the ceiling, or like, luckily I didn't drive. And that's another reason why I can't have, a gun. I have a gun, but it has to stay locked because I don't trust myself to not use it
against whatever is scaring you.
Yeah.
Or
yeah, and I don't trust myself to not use it. It gives me a lot of anxiety. So I feel like if I was that anxious about it going to sleep, it might exacerbate it, where I might like run to it first. I don't know. Maybe it's an irrational fear, but I really don't want to be, shooting off guns in the middle of the night in my house.
No, definitely not.
So is this something that affects more people in your family? Does anyone else have experiences like this?
Not that I know of. I mean, other than my son, who's 2.5 going on 3, he's had a few, but it's pretty common in kids, at least from what the doctors, have said. Kind of up until you hit puberty, it's kind of normal. Maybe not happens as much as happens to me, like as a kid, but he's had a few, but he's the only person that I know in my family who's had similar instances.
Living with this as you have, and like you said, you normally grow out of it in adolescence. Was there a point where you realized this wasn't going to go away? That this was just going to be the normal thing for you?
Probably like 17 or 18. I kind of figured, well, definitely hit puberty. Yeah, I don't think this is going away. So I think round about there, maybe my junior, senior in high school, when it was still happening and it was kind of my normal, and then realizing, hey, this doesn't happen to everybody else, it's probably not going to go away.
You seem to recall these night terrors pretty vividly. You always remember them when you come to the state of being fully awake?
Not all the time, but sometimes I don't even know why I'm really scared, and like it wasn't anything in particular. We would wake up screaming or running around or whatever. But I do remember, actually, as far back as maybe 5 or 6, I thought that there was an alien looking into my window, and ever since then I've been terrified of anything like that. Like I can't watch the movie Signs or anything alien related. I just really freak out about it. But it's odd now that I think about it, because the house only had maybe about 2 feet of backyard. It was just like a fence, and there's blackberry bushes back there. There's no way anyone could have been back there, but it was a little tiny alien head like looking at me in the window, and it just always freaked me out. And I remember specifically when that happened, I said, I have to get out of here. And I ran to the front door and I put my hand on the doorknob, and I just kind of was like, what am I doing? My mom was like, what are you doing? Go back to bed. And that's like the earliest one I could remember. I think maybe 5 or 6.
Do you think that maybe that could have been an implication from that experience? Maybe
being scared now?
Maybe maybe that this is something that is attached to that experience, that it wasn't, maybe it was real. Maybe it wasn't just a dream,
Yeah, I mean, I do think about that kind of stuff often, like the things that I see, or, maybe it's some type of something telling me something subconsciously. I mean, I don't really know what worms under my pillow would be like, indicative of, but still, there has to be something behind it, I really believe, but of what that is, I don't know.
Right. Freud would have some weird stuff to say about the worms under the pillow, and I'm sure that that's not really our line of expertise. So outside of you saying you can't really you have to have a gun locked up and stuff like that, and that you left and tried to get in your car, are there precautions you have to take before you do go to sleep? Like keys locked up, things like that.
No, not really. I mean, there probably should be, but that's only been a few instances where it got really extreme. I mean, most of the time it's just me screaming, waking up, or like jumping out of bed and running out, out the door or whatever, or making my husband turn on the light and look for whatever it is I think I see. But other than that, I mean, not really. If I get really stressed, I do kind of think about it, like maybe I should hide my keys, or like, you know, really make sure that I can't find the key to my gun safe or whatever. But other than that, not really.
And you know, we're talking to you today. Did you have an experience last night?
Yeah, but I really don't remember too much of it. It wasn't really a memorable one. It was just kind of me waking up really anxious and scared of really nothing. Kind of looked out, you know, where my bed is. You can see in the living room. Kind of thought I saw a shadow figure of some sort. Thought it was somebody, but it wasn't too exciting, I guess. I don't know.
Is there a general time of night where this happens to you? You know, if you go to sleep at the same time, you know, so you go to sleep at, you know, 8, 9 o'clock at night, are you up by 10?
I think it's more like sleep cycles itself, like how far I am into falling asleep. I've noticed that it pretty much always for sure happens right when I'm falling asleep, and getting past that, just, you know, laying down, relaxing to actually falling asleep. I'll kind of wake up that time. And then other times I don't check the time to see what time it is or whatever, but it definitely still spans out through the entire time I sleep. It gets a little quiet around the last maybe 3 hours of sleep before I wake up. I notice that's when I'm really deep asleep, but anytime before that, it's free game, pretty much.
So do you ever experience happy dreams?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I do. Mostly they're weird happy, but I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that was going to be close to what my question was. Is the rest of the time when you are in that deep sleep, your dreams are fairly normal?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of nightmares, which is weird because you hear night terror and you think, oh, you must have nightmares all the time. I really don't. I mean, most of my dreams are pretty normal. It's just the waking up part and being scared and your heart racing and stuff like that. But other than that, I really don't have a whole lot of nightmares, which is odd, but hey, I'll take it.
That's good. At least you're able to, you know, kind of get
Some relief.
some relief from that.
Yeah,
You know.
but I think a lot of it too, I'll forget because I wake up so much that I'll have like several dreams throughout the night. Because I mean, I really fall asleep 5 or 6 different times a night, so each
Wow.
dream will be different, you know. And even when I'll wake up in the morning, like maybe 4 o'clock, and you check your alarm, and you're like, oh, I got a couple more hours of sleep. Go back to sleep. I'll have a whole different dream, or I'll be able to go back to sleep and like finish whatever dream I was having, pick up where I left off. Which I don't know if that's like a learned trait that I got from waking up, falling asleep so much, but
Right, kind of going back
my
in and
dreams a
out.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. A lot of that, you know, going in and out of those sleep states. I know a lot of people experiment with lucid dreaming,
Mhm.
where they can kind of do that. You kind of can wake up and kind of go back into a dream. Do you feel as though when you are in your more normal dreams that you're very aware that you are dreaming, given how much time you spend with the night terrors and everything?
Sometimes, not often though. I mean, there's some dreams that I definitely know I can do whatever I want. Like I know I'll be dreaming, but most of the time, I think I'm just too exhausted to even try.
Yeah, just ready to hit that rim.
Yeah, just ready to get actual sleep, which I don't normally get. So, I mean, even when I've been like on an airplane, I'll doze off and I'll have one, you know, or taking a nap. I mean, it happens anywhere in the car. If I fall asleep in the car on a road trip or something, a lot of sleep talking too. So it's
It's not
wild.
isolated to just that nighttime.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty much any time. And I think it really happens more when I'm traveling. If I'm somewhere else, I feel like it happens more, or it's more intense, one of the two.
I have got to say that if I was on an airplane and my seat buddy woke up screaming, I think I would
Lose my
I would
mind.
lose my shit immediately.
That's a little,
I'll
it
go
can be
down and like,
embarrassing. So I try not to fall asleep in front of anybody else. I really try to stay awake because I never know what's going to happen.
wow. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences and talking to us about it. And I'm sure you're not alone on this, and there's
Yeah,
probably a
a
lot
lot
of
of people that can relate.
viewers and listeners who can relate to that. So thank you for.
Well, I hope not, but I hope that sharing my story make it feel a little bit more normal, because you know, for a long time I just felt like I was a total freak show, and like I didn't want to tell anyone about it. It's embarrassing, but now it's just kind of like I live with it. It is what it is. It's a medical type of disorder, and I just have to deal with it. So.
Well, we wish you luck.
Yeah, I hope you get some good sleep tonight.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming. We hope to talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to all of our guests that have appeared on our show tonight. And thank you, our viewers and listeners, for tuning in for another episode of Beam Screams and Dreams. If you'd like to reach out and share your story, you can contact us at beamscreamdream@gmail.com. For all the rest of our socials, you can find the link in the description of this video or podcast. We'll leave you with a quote, as always, this time by astronomer and ufologist J. Allen Hynek. I have begun to feel that there is a tendency in the 20th century science to forget that there will be a 21st century science, and indeed a 30th century science, from which vantage points our knowledge of this universe may appear quite different than it does to us. We suffer, perhaps, from temporal provincialism, a form of arrogance that has always irritated posterity. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Was that creepy enough for you?